Yvette Herrell claimed a rigged election when she lost 2 years ago. After winning the 2nd Congressional District in November, she's complaining of other electoral problems. Now, as violent pro-Trump demonstrators descended on the Capitol Wednesday, she planned to object to electors from 6 states, along with more than 100 other Republican colleagues. Given the stunning violence, some expected her to change course in her objections to votes in Arizona and Pennsylvania. She did not. Here to offer thoughts, our Line Opinion panel. President of Collective Action Strategies, Giovanna Rossi, is with us. Thank you. Good to see you. And from Ciarza Social Digital, founder Crystal Ciarza joins us as well. Very glad to have you here. It's great to have Justine Fox Young back with us. She's a former state representative and a local attorney. Welcome to you all. All right, here's what Representative Herrell wrote about her decision. Quote, "My hope is that elevating this debate to the highest and final level the Constitution provides for will result in a continued discussion of our electoral process. Action must be taken to restore Americans' faith in our fairness of our elections and the legitimacy of our institutions," end quote. Justine, did she accomplish her goal?
Well, to the extent that there is a real issue there, and I think there are a lot of people across the country who think that there are issues with voter integrity, with, the number of votes that are cast before Election Day, really banal technical issues like signature verification and extending absentee ballot deadlines.
All those things that have been around for a decade, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and I raised a lot of these issues when I was in the legislature. These are ongoing legislative fights. I think there's a process, and it's appropriate for our members of Congress, to the extent that they think it's important, to raise these issues. I don't really take issue with that. I don't really know what her goal is, though. I mean, I think, we've seen in some of the comments in the last 24 hours from people like Tom Cotton and others, yeah, there's a meaty issue there. There's work for state legislatures to do, to the extent that there's doubt about election results. But a lot of this is just political theater. It's fundraising. It's capitalizing on a moment. So I don't want to really speculate about what Yvette Herrell wants to make out of this moment. But if it is substantive changes in, say, New Mexico law or Pennsylvania law or Georgia law, she's not in a position to affect those changes. I mean, you can, and this has happened. There's precedent for this in many prior elections where Congress debates these issues, raises the issues at the point of, where we were yesterday as we certify the election. And that's not improper, but raising it to a fever pitch, I don't know if she wants to raise money out of it, if she wants to inherit the Pierce legacy on this. I don't know. But I don't see her activating or motivating the legislatures who need to do the work that I think she's asking to be done.
Thank you. Your last point there was kind of what it's been in my head as well. Giovanna, let me read you partly her quote that was in the Journal. As a state representative of New Mexico, Pennsylvania's unconstitutional actions disenfranchised my constituents and the constituents of my colleagues. How? I don't get the connection there.
Yeah, when I heard that on the clip, when she said that, it was really confusing. And so I think she, some staffer put that into her comments because they thought, oh, we need to make a connection to New Mexico because people are going to be mad about her doing this. Well, yeah, but you didn't accomplish what you needed to do there. It doesn't make any sense. And the bottom line is that by participating in that effort, in the political theater, as Justine said, she was part of enabling what happened yesterday. She was part of the problem. And I don't think any amount of explaining away now can help her in this situation. I think we need to call it like it is and say like that was enabling the events that happened yesterday. It was unacceptable as a member of Congress to do that.
Crystal, I probably should let the viewers know as we air this Friday night, we're taping this on Thursday midday. A whole lot of things could have happened between then and now, so I apologize to the viewers in case something has happened. But on that note, Ms. Harrell did say that what happened on Capitol Hill was reprehensible. That was a quote on Twitter. And she's also aligned herself, however, with Cowboys for Trump, Couy Griffin, who was pictured at the event. He was at the U.S. Capitol yesterday when all this was going on, not inside. The picture of him was outside. She has walked this amazingly thin line for a lot of months when it comes to this stuff, and this guy, Couy Griffin, especially. She always seems to be having to answer for him and her association with him. Does this do something about her credibility when we hear her say these things, in your view?
It's a great question in terms of credibility, because instantly when I heard the speech, I said, wow, whoever wrote that for the entire Republican group of legislators that were on the opposition must be proud about the fact how well she read somebody else's statement. Right. That's immediately the first thought that I had. And I also think that with Yvette Herrell, and obviously, dancing with Cowboys for Trump, who I have unfortunately met through Twitter, just like many of us have. It's really interesting that when for some of her first words were, it's unfortunate that this is going to be, this topic is going to be my first speech as an elected official into the House. And when I heard that, I said to myself, well, it will be the first and only speech that will dictate your loyalty to the party and which side of the Republican Party you have chosen. And I say this because other Republican legislators, like Senator Lindsey Graham, said something that made me just say, I never thought I would say the day, or never would imagine that I would see the day. And he said, the mob got me to do something I'd never do, which is admit that Senator Rand Paul is right. He could have said those exact same words. She could have said something along those same party lines. So that speech for her, as canned and as red as it sounds, even if she voted to upheld the Electoral College vote, she would still have a strong legislative voting support in the counties that she represents. Mm-hmm. That the fact that she chose this portion of the aisle may actually affect her reelection in 2 years, 100%. She could have disagreed and she would have been fine. Mm-hmm. So I think she drew out her legacy on day one.
It's an interesting point there. I have to follow up, Justine, on that very point. It's interesting. Political future from this. I have to imagine that she might have gone into this thinking, well, I'm an ex-legislator in New Mexico. I could walk back there and swing a big hammer about reform if I join this and things sort of work out our way, but it didn't work out their way. And so it just seems to me, how could she, again, credibly come back to New Mexico and say, we need to do some reform things through this process? Does that work?
Well, let me answer a slightly different question and what I've been thinking about. And I wish that there were more conversation around the Electoral College about what happens to everybody who's not in one of these 6 states that mattered this election. And I think what Yvette Herrell is feeling is not misplaced. She didn't articulate it very well, but when she says our fates depend on Pennsylvania and Michigan, and this is what has happened in this country. And as we've become more polarized, and as the number of swing states has diminished, places like New Mexico find themselves without a voice. Right. And it's very hard as a representative from a state like what is now a flyover state, as far as presidential politics is concerned, to have a voice. And so you end up jumping on the bandwagon and, waving the flag because you can't deliver in other ways. And that is a problem for our country. I think that should be a bigger conversation piece than some of the other electoral reforms that are being discussed. But I think that's what she's trying to say. Mm-hmm. We're at the mercy of these swing states.
Well, fair enough. I think Crystal's point, though, maybe if she had written it herself and come from her own heart, maybe that might have come across a little bit more. It just rang a little flat.
Well,
you know.
all these stump speeches do. I mean,
Yeah.
you stay up and watch C-SPAN any night, and you're going to feel that way. They say very little anymore.
That's a good
So
point.
then let's call it like it is. So then let's say what this really was, which was it was a political stunt and it was unacceptable. And I think we're going to see, people really working against her in her next election.
Yeah, I think that probably is true.
Interesting points there. Hey, we're out of time on this topic, but don't go anywhere. We're talking evictions next.